Confrontation at Queen's Park following the vote to silence a provincial politician.
Tonight, the consequences of a controversial comment, an MPP censured and kicked out of caucus. Good evening. It's a debate that's been brewing for days and culminated with a vote today.
Sarah Jama under fire for a social media post about the Israel-Hamas war. Today, disciplined not only by her critics in the legislature, but by her own party, too. CTV's Mike Walker joins us with the story. Mike.
Well, the censure means Sarah Jama is now banned from speaking in the House unless she issues a formal apology and deletes that social media post. She's also been kicked out of the NDP caucus, with party leader Merritt Stiles saying her actions has broken the trust of her colleagues.
Make space for her, please.
Surrounded by supporters, Hamilton MPP Sarah Jama didn't make any comments as she left Queen's Park.
All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
After the Ford government passed a motion censuring her in the legislature for a pro-Palestinian social media post without mentioning the Hamas attack launched against Israeli citizens. But during a debate before the vote,
the Ford government has done nothing meaningful to say about these atrocities and has now targeted me to distract from its own scandals.
Jama spoke out against the motion and reaffirmed her support for Palestinians in the Israel-Hamas war.
I restate my call for an immediate ceasefire by Israeli forces and for the immediate restoration of food, water, fuel, and electricity in Gaza. Ground my words in the realities of the Israeli apartheid and Israel's ongoing domination and occupation of Palestinian lands.
The NDP voted against the motion, calling it undemocratic.
This really egregious motion.
But just moments before, decided to remove Jama from caucus.
We've really tried to work hard with her because we wanted her voice to be able to be heard, but she continued to undermine our and not work in good faith with us. And so this morning I made the difficult decision.
The Liberals abstained from the vote.
It's dividing us in here at a time when we have to bring Ontarians together.
Jama now sits as an independent. Jewish advocacy groups welcome her removal from caucus.
Lots of situations that, quite honestly, the type of rhetoric that's been applied by Sarah Jama certainly, in broad terms, has thrown fuel on the fire, and hoping that this move will calm some of those tensions.
The censure means Jama will be silenced in the legislature and not recognized by the Speaker unless she retracts her statement and issues another apology.
It's very rare. Typically, legislatures do it and vote in favor of it where they feel that comments are very injurious to the public interest, not the parliamentary interest.
Jama has apologized once for the post and condemned Hamas, but has not retracted the original statement. Now, Jama is threatening legal action against Premier Doug Ford for allegations he made about her history of anti-Semitism. A lawyer for the Premier has now responded, stating those accusations will be defended vigorously. Reporting live, I'm Mike Walker. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Mike. And still to come, protesters gather at York University. The rally in support of Palestinians calling for action in the Middle East. The student union statements at the center of the controversy there. But first, to the latest in the Middle East, and a warning, this next story contains disturbing content. Israel has intensified its attacks in the Gaza Strip, where the humanitarian situation is getting increasingly desperate.
And as the war rages on, there's new hope for the families of more than 200 people being held captive by the terror group Hamas. CTV's Heather Wright reports.
Held hostage for more than 2 weeks, 2 women are now safe. 79-year-old Nurit Cooper and 85-year-old Yoheved Lifshitz were kidnapped from Kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7th. Released today by Hamas, handed over to the Red Cross, who transported them out of Gaza. This comes after 2 Americans, Judith and Natalie Renan, were let go last week. Israel increased the number of people it believes is being held by Hamas to 222, with efforts and negotiations happening around the clock to get them home. And while Israel launched one of its most intense barrages of airstrikes overnight, Western allies are urging a delay to an expected ground invasion, hoping for more time to negotiate the release of more hostages. We attacked military compounds and observation posts, the IDF said today, all part of our readiness for the next stages of war. In Gaza, the death toll of civilians continues to climb. More than 5,000 have been killed, with over 15,000 injured, according to the Hamas-led health ministry. Entire neighborhoods have been wiped out by airstrikes, which hit a refugee camp overnight for the second time in a matter of days. More than 40 people were killed, mostly women and children. And while some aid has been delivered, much more is needed, including fuel to power generators, especially at hospitals. There are 55 babies here, this doctor in the neonatal intensive care unit says. He fears all of them will die in minutes if the electricity goes off. Hundreds of Canadians remain trapped in Gaza as well, including Mansour Shuman.
Throughout the night, we kept hearing bombs coming down on us here beside us in the hospital. The entrance of the bomb was also hit very hard a couple of times, and lots of people were killed and injured right beside me here.
Efforts to get foreigners out continue.
And Heather Wright joins us now from Tel Aviv. Heather, 2 more hostages have been released. What else are you hearing about that?
Well, they were released earlier tonight, Nathan, dropped off or met with the Red Cross within Gaza. They were taken to the Rafah border crossing into Egypt, and we're told they're making their way back into Israel, where they will be reunited with their families. Of course, this is fantastic news for their families, but also brings some hope to the families of the estimated 220 people who are still being held hostage within Gaza by Hamas.
And what's the latest on the humanitarian crisis?
Well, you could see some of those images, and they are heartbreaking, they're heart-wrenching, and they are ongoing. So aid is starting to trickle in, but their aid groups are saying that it really is not enough. There have been ongoing negotiations to try to get a sustained flow of aid through the Rafah border crossing and into Gaza. It's not clear how many trucks are going to go in over the coming days, but the fact that it has now been 3 days in a row where we have seen aid trucks move in is really a good sign that perhaps there has been a negotiated agreement to get a flow of aid going. Much more is needed. This is a place that has been under a complete siege for over 2 weeks now, and so all of their supplies have dwindled. They need a lot more to rebuild the reserves that they had, and also to take care of the estimated 1 million people who have been displaced within Gaza, not to mention the thousands more who have been injured.
Right. Then, of course, the war itself. How much concern is there that the war could spread?
Well, we were in Jerusalem today, Nathan, speaking with a Palestinian man who lives in the occupied West Bank, and you really did get a sense about how much things have changed in the last 2 weeks in the occupied West Bank alone. We know that at least 95 people have been killed there, whether it's that's through, raids by the Israeli military, airstrikes, or with demonstrations that become violent. But tensions there are high. There's a concern that perhaps that could be another front in the war. And of course, the north with Hezbollah, where clashes between Israeli military forces and Hezbollah have continued. More towns have been evacuated. And so things very much are tense here in the region. There's a lot of effort underway from foreign powers, from Western powers, to try to ensure that this does not become a multi-front war that spreads to other places within the region.
All right, CTV's Heather Wright in Tel Aviv. Thank you.
A crowd of demonstrators converged on the grounds of York University today, calling for action to help Palestinians impacted by the Israel-Hamas war.
It follows a weekend of protests, one of them prompting condemnation from local leaders, including Toronto's mayor. CTV's Allison Hurst joins us live with the details. Allison.
Protesters gathered in this area of the campus. It remained peaceful, and they walked around campus as well.
Stop the killing, stop the hate!
In the middle of York University's Kiel campus,
Free Palestine!
More than 100 demonstrators gathered to show solidarity with Gaza.
We're here to stand with our Palestinian brothers and sisters.
The group marched around campus, raising their voices with a clear message.
To demand that the Canadian government stop supporting Israel, stop sending weapons to Israel, and stop giving them political impunity to do as they please, including commit genocide.
The protest comes at a time when the university and 3 student unions are at a stalemate. A statement released by the union says They stand with Palestine and called the October 7th attack on Israel a strong act of resistance. The university has condemned the statement and required the unions to demonstrate a breach had not occurred or retract the statement and remove it, issue a public statement confirming they do not endorse or support anti-Semitism or any form of discrimination or violence, and all student union executives must resign.
When York University bullies 3 student unions for saying they support Palestine, they are complicit. They are complicit because they are making us feel unsafe.
Meanwhile, this week, a Toronto restaurant was surrounded by protesters. The video surfaced after demonstrators marched in a pro-Palestinian rally through downtown Toronto on Saturday. The actions have been widely criticized.
A local business in our community, Spadina Fort York, was singled out for being Jewish-owned, and for no other reason than that they were owned by someone of Jewish heritage and that they should be boycotted. That's not just. That's not right.
Mayor Olivia Chow tweeted a response saying targeting a business in this way is wrong. There is no place in our city for anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, hate, intimidation, and harassment of any kind.
A statement from restaurant ownership says that its primary focus is fostering a safe environment for both its patrons and its staff, along with ensuring an inclusive space that embraces individuals from diverse backgrounds. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Allison. Still to come tonight, an OPP officer injured on the job, struck by a fleeing suspect vehicle. The chaotic scene in a Caledon neighborhood caught on camera.
But first, let's take a live look outside. The sun just about to set after what was a bright October day. The temperature quite nice for this point in October. But get this, it is going to warm up a bit this week. Lindsay Morrison is here with a look at the current conditions. We don't typically say that in October. There's just a little trade-off that comes with the warmer temps.
There is, Michelle, with the exception of tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day you want to get outside and enjoy the warmth and some sunshine, because eventually we're going to have some wet weather move in. It is currently 12 degrees in Toronto. Nice rebound from this morning when it was very chilly. Winds are coming from the south currently, not overly strong. Do want to point out that if you're joining us from Vaughan or perhaps North York, you might be getting a very spotty shower right now, but otherwise we've got some cloud out there. There's a bigger disturbance that's going to swing through and impact some areas through the overnight hours tonight. Not as cold tonight as it was last night. 7 is what we're forecasting. And tomorrow, the temperature is going to be in the upper teens. At times this week, maybe even climbing close to 20. We'll take you through the forecast coming up. For now, Nathan, I'll send it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. We turn to the latest example of the real-life dangers police face on the job.
An OPP officer was injured after being struck during an investigation in Caledon. And we want to warn you, CTV News has obtained security video of the incident. Our Janice Goulding joins us live now from Caledon with the details. Janice.
Michelle, it certainly was a disturbing and shocking morning for area residents here. Now, as you mentioned, we have obtained some disturbing security video, and I'm going to just keep in mind that the fact is we actually obtained video that started several minutes before what we're going to show you. In it, you'll see that a suspect has been stopped by a police spike belt.
An OPP SUV on the left side of Tundra Drive is faced by a black Jeep Wrangler when suddenly the driver of the Jeep takes off, mounting the curb and striking a police officer. Almost simultaneously, another officer opens fire on the escaping vehicle 3 times before running to assist his fallen comrade.
Around 7:15, we had shots. It's very scary because obviously we got young kids.
It was the neighborhood group because we're so close knit. They've seen the cars from their windows. They're asking everybody what happened. Some of them heard gunshots and stuff. It's scary, right?
Investigators say the OPP were responding to a call about a suspicious vehicle and had set up a spike belt on Tundra, but ultimately that would not stop the Jeep's driver.
It appears that one bullet went through a civilian vehicle on the street behind me, and at least one other bullet struck that Jeep Wrangler that fled the scene.
The Jeep would end up on a residential street near Dixie and Mayfield, about 10 minutes away. You can see one of its tires is blown out, and from our chopper you can tell the engine is still running from the exhaust fumes.
The occupants of that vehicle are at large, and the OPP are currently conducting a parallel criminal investigation and trying to locate the individuals in that vehicle.
The Jeep was originally stopped at around 7:15 a.m. and the security video CTV obtained shows residents were walking past the scene both before and after shots were fired.
We've got people roaming the streets. We've got kids going to school, waiting for buses. Certainly these officers were, trying to execute their lawful duties. And when this incident occurred.
Residents tell CTV they'd seen the Jeep in the area a number of times over the last 2 weeks, but add they did not expect anything like this to happen.
It's not great when you've got young kids if this is happening in your neighborhood.
I just woke up, and I see this and I'm like, okay, close the doors, everybody stay inside.
It's really dangerous for everyone because if they injured the police officer, the cop, then we are not safe.
The injured officer is in serious but non-life-threatening condition.
The SIU, which has invoked its mandate given shots were fired by police, say they do not know if a bullet struck anyone inside the fleeing Jeep. The suspects are still at large. Reporting live, I'm Janice Golding. Now back to Michelle.
Thank you, Janice. A major highway closure and cleanup today after a crash that has now proved to be deadly. This was the mess on Highway 401 this morning in Ajax near Lake Ridge Road. The OPP got the call around 8:46. They say a car in the eastbound lane slowed down for an unknown reason and a tractor trailer slammed into the back of it. The force of the impact separating the truck from its trailer, and you are looking at the resulting mess. That busy stretch of the 401 closed between Ajax and Whitby for most of the day. Police say the driver of the car has died in hospital.
3 teenage boys are facing charges in connection with the evacuation of St. Patrick's Station. Police say the accused were on a train last Tuesday when they gained access to the operator cab and broadcast a message over the PA system claiming there was a bomb on the train. The message prompted the evacuation of the train and station. Police later determined there was no bomb. The 17-year-old boys are facing several charges, including mischief over $5,000.
The threat of the flu and other respiratory illnesses is a real concern this time of year.
So many people seem to be sick right now, and health officials say there's potential for cases to rise. CTV's Natalie Johnson spoke to the city's top doctor to get an outlook on this year's flu season. Natalie.
Hi, Nathan. The medical officer of health told the board here today that some of the funding for COVID management is starting to dry up. Even though demands on the system remain, Toronto Public Health is predicting a high level of respiratory viruses in the city this fall and winter. Walk into Toronto City Hall and there are rapid antigen tests free for the taking. Part of the public health push to be prepared for a predicted surge in respiratory illness.
We see it right now. COVID-19 is still here. Admittedly, we're not in the most acute phase of the pandemic, and thank goodness for that, but we do continue to have outbreaks caused by COVID-19.
The percent positivity is currently considered moderate, the tail end of a recent wave. But with the flu and RSV also added to the mix, Toronto Public Health is bracing for an early seasonal spike. Last year's surge started sooner and was busier than previous years, and recent data from other parts of the world suggests Toronto may once again be in for an early increase in infections.
Coming through the pandemic in the last few years, we have to be giving leadership to responding to our most urgent crises, and especially when it comes to respiratory viruses.
Today, the Board of Health calling on the province to extend $5 million in annual funding for infection prevention and control hubs. Hospital-based physicians and other experts who work to prevent and respond to outbreaks in congregate settings like long-term care homes and shelters.
I hope the province recognizes the importance of this and, put the money where their mouth is.
Meanwhile, 4 city-run immunization clinics will offer COVID-19 and flu shots for the general public starting October 30th. High-risk individuals are already eligible. Primary care providers and many pharmacies are also rolling up sleeves to vaccinate against the viruses before the case counts climb. As for that $5 million ask for more COVID money, that will go to the province as soon as full council signs off. Reporting live at City Hall, I'm Natalie Johnson. Nathan, over to you.
All right, thank you, Natalie. Returning to Queen's Park, and another move today sparked in part by the Greenbelt scandal.
The province is reversing plans to change the urban boundaries of several Ontario municipalities. It comes after questions were raised about how the process was handled by the former housing minister's office. Our Sean Leithung is in studio with more. Sean.
Well, Michelle and Nathan, first it was the Greenbelt, then it was a plan to expand urban boundaries. The government calls it a reset. The opposition calls it a stunning reversal. reversing course for the second time in a month because the government says their process, did not maintain or reinforce public trust.
Clearly, the process was one that I was just not comfortable with. I think there was just a little bit too much involvement from individuals within the previous minister's office on the official plans in these areas.
First, it was the Greenbelt. Today, the government's reversing course on a plan to expand the urban boundaries of a number of cities and regions. Minister Paul Caledon says the reversal will affect Barrie, Belleville, Guelph, Hamilton, Ottawa, Peterborough, Halton, Niagara, Peel, Waterloo, York, and Wellington County.
This really is a reset for me as a minister to work with my municipal partners so that we can remain focused on working together.
Former Minister of Housing and Municipal Affairs Steve Clark resigned in September in the wake of the Greenbelt scandal after a scathing report from both the Auditor General and Integrity Commissioner finding that some developers had been favored in the process. After the government reversed course on the Greenbelt, Grimsby and Pickering both asked that the province repay nearly $400,000 they'd spent on preparing.
The Premier has a propensity to say it's never the wrong time to do the right thing, and reimbursing the taxpayers of the City of Pickering is the right thing to do.
2 weeks ago, it was revealed that the RCMP is investigating the process relating to the Greenbelt. The opposition had called for an Auditor General's investigation into the urban boundary expansion and say today's reversal is an attempt to avoid more scrutiny.
I don't think the government saw the light as much as they felt the heat of an RCMP investigation.
The same corrupt process that led to the Greenbelt scandal was used in these urban boundary expansions.
Hamilton Mayor Andrea Horvath said in a statement, "This is a big victory for our city and for the protection of Hamilton farmland. Hamilton can meet our housing commitments without any changes to our boundaries and without opening up the Greenbelt to development." Minister Calandra says cities and regions have 45 days to reach out and make changes to their official plans. The minister also says some urban centers will be eligible for reimbursement related to this reversal. Reporting live, I'm Sean Leathong. Nathan Michelle, send it back to you.
Thank you, Sean. 6 people were taken to hospital today after a school bus rolled over north of Calgary. 5 children and 1 adult suffered non-life-threatening injuries. They were on their way to a field trip when the crash occurred. Road conditions are believed to have been a factor, but police say the cause is still under investigation. Snow fell in the region today as a snowfall warning was in effect for a large portion of the province.
A social media campaign connected to China is spamming dozens of Canadian MPs. A bot network has spread thousands of propaganda and disinformation messages. They started appearing on the Facebook and X accounts of the politicians in August. Global Affairs says that included the Prime Minister, some cabinet ministers, and the leader of the official opposition. All MPs have been notified of the campaign and given advice about how to protect themselves.
One of the charges against Tamara Lich has been dropped. A bail violation charge against the Freedom Convoy organizer was supposed to be heard next week, but her main trial is running behind schedule, so the Crown has stayed the charge to free up more court time. Lich and co-accused Chris Barber are on trial related to the 2022 truckers' protest in downtown Ottawa. They're accused of mischief, counseling others to commit mischief, and intimidation.
A statue has been erected in New York focusing on an old age myth related to the city. It shows a life-size alligator wrapped around a manhole cover. The statue is in relation to the legend of reptiles living in the Big Apple's sewer system. Rumors about the alligators appear to date back to at least the 1930s. That's when the New York Times reported that some kids discovered one underground.
Still ahead on CTV News, a twice-in-a-lifetime experience for a local Shania Twain fan, pulled on stage for a second time more than 20 years after she first met her idol. Their reunion is coming up.
I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, having home renovations done can be a big job, and you have to make sure you find the right contractor. Toronto senior paid more than $100,000 for a dream kitchen, but the company she hired took her money and never came back. All of that story just ahead.
Well, it was a frosty start to the day. Today, we were under a frost advisory here in the city of Toronto. Many communities fell below the freezing mark. For example, -5 degrees in Algonquin Park, -4 in Peterborough, Oshawa and Hamilton on either side of the GTA, below freezing too. And in Toronto, we fell to 0 for the first time this season. Here's the thing, though. We are in for a warm-up, maybe even 20 degrees at times this week. Could reach record territory. We will show you which days are going to be hot and when it's going to cool back down again. Stay with us. CTV News will be back in 2 minutes.
If you're having a major home renovation done, you need to do your research and choose your contractor carefully.
You should also never pay too much money in advance. If you do, the company could leave before the job is done. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Nathan and Michelle, a Toronto senior wanted to build her dream kitchen, and she called a company that left a brochure in her mailbox. The contractor wanted payments up front, and while some work was done, when he got the final payment, he never came back.
Like he promised, he will give me a dream kitchen.
Mary Austin has lived in this Toronto home for the past 20 years. She always wanted a larger kitchen, so when a contractor left information in her mailbox saying he did kitchen renovations, she contacted the company. He asked for $18,000 up front, but only started the work 7 months later. Austin says he was constantly asking for more money.
It was $5,000, then $25,000, then $16,000.
Austin then found out the contractors who were actually doing the work were not being paid. Eventually, everyone quit. In total, she gave the rental company $107,000.
I made a mistake, but a big mistake cost me so much money. I borrowed money that I have to pay interest on.
The contractor said this kitchen would be done by Christmas of 2021, but after he got his last installment check of almost $20,000, he never came back, and that was over a year ago. Austin says the contractor had her convinced the kitchen would be completed, so she went out and bought new appliances, but her new fridge, stove, and dishwasher have been sitting unused since last year.
I feel depressed. I feel cheated. I feel like I'm a fool. I should not have trusted that guy.
The company she hired is Ontario Certified Contractors and Builders, Inc. On the contract she signed, the contractor put only his first name, Bill. We emailed the company and called them several times. Can you let us know, are you going to finish the job or give Mary her money back? Our calls and emails were not returned, and after we tried to contact the company, their website was taken down. Austin doesn't have the money to finish her dream kitchen and now isn't sure what she's going to do.
I can't sell it. I can't do anything about it like that. I can't live like that. I would like at least part of my money back.
And if you're having renovations done, don't pay too much in advance. Research the company carefully and make sure you know their physical address. It's best in the contract to include a payment schedule so you only pay for work as it's completed. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Well, like it or not, winter is coming, and our friends in Western Canada got a lovely little preview today. This is what it looked like in Edmonton. The first snowfall of the season across central Alberta. People in Calgary woke up to some freezing drizzle as the temperatures started to fall. Environment Canada called for 10 to 15 centimeters there. A snowfall warning was also issued for southern Saskatchewan.
You know, it always seems like the snow is never going to come, especially with the weather we're getting now, but you know it's going to come eventually.
It is coming eventually. I got my snow tires on. I feel like for this area really early this year. But yeah, we're still a ways away, right?
Right. Suddenly our frosty morning this morning doesn't seem so bad, does it? It feels like we're a while away considering the forecast this week. We're going to talk about temperatures maybe approaching or exceeding 20 degrees at times this week. But yeah, that snow, we can't get too comfortable because November is also right around the corner. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Before I show you the big temperature difference between parts of Canada and the U.S., I want to bring you up to speed on Hurricane Tammy, which continues to swirl, bringing heavy rains to portions of the British Virgin Islands and the Leeward Islands. Eventually, this is going to curve back toward North America, but if it does, it is likely to be a post-tropical or a remnant low at that point. We also have Tropical Storm Otis that we're keeping a close eye on here, expected to bring heavy rains to southwestern Mexico as early as tonight and then through the early part of this week as well. All right, look at the temperature difference. We showed you the snow that was falling in Edmonton. It is -5 degrees there currently. It's -7 in Whitehorse. Look at Wichita, Kansas, 31 degrees at this hour, 29 in Memphis, 27 in Des Moines. We are not expecting a warm up quite that severe or significant, but some of that warmer air is going to make its way into our neck of the woods. So just to put this into perspective for you, our seasonal norm, or our average daytime high this time of year, is about 12 degrees, and the overnight low is about 4. As we said, early this morning, the temperature was 0, so we were cooler than normal. Tonight, we're going to be slightly warmer than 7 is what we're forecasting, so certainly a warmer night tonight than we experienced last night. No concerns about frost. And then here's tomorrow, maybe 20 degrees in Grand Bend in the afternoon. Mix of sun and cloud right around the Golden Horseshoe, 18 in Oakville as well as Georgina, 17 degrees for you in the Whitby area. Might be slightly cooler the further north you travel, 15 degrees in Minden, but it's looking like a pretty bright day in Brighton, just a 30% chance of a passing shower. Speaking of which, we're watching that right now. Couple of sprinkles of rain around the GTA. Nothing all that significant yet. There's a series of disturbances that are going to swing through over the next couple of days here. No particular day is looking like a washout at this point, but you might want to keep the umbrella handy starting about Wednesday. Here's overnight tonight, so just a chance of showers around southern Georgian Bay, perhaps extending to us here in the GTA, but nothing too significant. Tomorrow brings us a mix of sun and cloud, wet weather to the north, getting into some of that rain as we make our way into Wednesday morning. And then in the afternoon and evening, spotty showers on and off, a little more in the way of cloud cover. And it looks as though you might need the umbrella for Thursday, Friday, perhaps into the weekend as well. But Thursday and Friday is when we're going to be especially warm, nearing that 20-degree threshold or perhaps exceeding it. We'll see what happens. Then it's back to reality next weekend. Temperature around 11 degrees for your Saturday, only 9 for Sunday. And it looks as though we could be in for some light rain during the lead up to Halloween. That's your look at the forecast for now. Nathan, over to you.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. A thrill of a lifetime that happened not once, but twice over a span of 20 years. Meet the ultimate Shania Twain fan with the ultimate moment in the spotlight. That's coming up. It's the ultimate fan moment, the opportunity to sing on stage with your favorite entertainer.
Well, that happened not once, but twice to a woman from Vaughan. Our Andrea Case joins us now with her story. Andrea.
Hello, Michelle and Nathan. Hello, everyone at home. Daniela Agostino has a master's in opera performance and is well on her way to her chosen career. She was enjoying the show when she heard her name called. And you can only imagine the shock of being reunited with her pop idol in front of nearly 15,000 people.
I'll sing you some Rossini and a very out-of-tune piano.
Budding opera singer Daniela Agostino was inspired to become a singer by none other than 5-time Grammy winner Shania Twain.
I just grew up singing all of her music and everything.
But opera wasn't her first love. When she was just 8 years old, her family attended a Shania Twain concert at the Air Canada Centre. No singers on your side of the family?
No. We just have a loud voice. We're Italian. In my oh-so-subtle fashion, I was like, I'm going to make a sign that says, pick me to sing. Not thinking it would work, but I was like, I'm going to do my little sign. And so I had my sign and everything. And when it came to that part of the concert, she was like, come on up. And I was like, what?
Very good for the singer, and I wish you lots of luck.
That was the most powerful moment an 8-year-old can possibly have. So to have it again, to meet your idol twice, I was like, this is not happening. So it was pretty incredible.
Fast forward 22 years and Twain was back in Toronto, same venue, now with a different name. If Agostino is a little hoarse today, she has a good reason.
A couple of weeks ago, I Instagram DM'd Shania and I was like, I'm going to your concert again. Like, this is going to be so great. And I sang with you when I was a kid, not thinking she would see it because it's Shania Twain and who am I?
Then Twain called out her name.
I had no idea it was going to happen. My face pops up on the screen and I both my sister and I grabbed each other and we're like, that's me, that what? And we just started screaming.
Agostino says it was like an out-of-body experience.
She was like, oh my God, your voice is gorgeous. I'm in awe of you. And to have Shania Twain look at you and say, your voice is gorgeous, I peaked.
Agostino was recently awarded a grant to study opera in Italy and Germany. And for those who aren't fans, she says, go to the opera. It's fun. For CTV News, I'm Andrea Case. Michelle, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Andrea. Well, Drake will be celebrating his birthday tomorrow and is offering his fans a gift. To celebrate turning 37, the rapper is giving away chicken sandwiches at any Dave's Hot Chicken location. Drake is an investor in the restaurant chain, which has several GTA locations. The giveaway is in person only between 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. tomorrow, and patrons must follow Dave's Hot Chicken on Instagram or TikTok.
Reunited and ready to rock again. Blink-182 are returning to Toronto next summer.
One more time. One more time.
The pop-punk trio will play Rogers Centre on August 14th. Pre-sales start tomorrow with general admission tickets available on Friday. The Toronto show is the final date on the band's 30-city One More Time tour of North America. It begins next June in Orlando.
It's going to start getting very busy at the North Pole soon, but that won't stop Santa from making his annual early visit to Toronto.
Oh, goodness gracious. Merry Christmas, everyone.
We learned today the original Santa Claus Parade will be held on Sunday, November 26th. It will feature 26 decorated floats along with bands, marchers, and clowns. And this year, there is a new route.
North America's largest children's parade begins at 12:30 at Christie Pitts. It will head east along Bloor to Spadina, then continue south on Spadina, east on Harbour Street and Hoskin Avenue, then south on Queen's Park Crescent and University Avenue, east on Wellington Street and south again on Yonge to Front Street. From there, it heads east on Front before finishing at the St. Lawrence Market. The parade will air exclusively on CTV, ctv.ca, and the CTV app.
To you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
A Toronto skateboarder soars at the Pan Am Games, securing gold at the age of 13. After the break, you'll hear from her coach and find out what the young gold medalist uses as a good luck charm.
On the next CP24 Breakfast,
Tech guru Mark Saltzman shows us the latest in smart home gadgets to help make life a little easier.
That's on the next CP24 Breakfast, up first at 5:30.
The Ford government has done nothing meaningful to say about these atrocities and has now targeted me to distract from its own scandals.
Updating our top stories, Ontario New Democrats have kicked Hamilton Centre MPP Sarah Jama out of caucus. This comes nearly 2 weeks after she posted a statement supporting Palestinians without mentioning the Hamas attack on Israeli citizens. While speaking at Queen's Park today, Jama stood by her stance and again called for an immediate ceasefire by Israeli forces.
2 more hostages were released by Hamas today. This after 2 Americans were let go last week. Israeli officials say they believe more than 200 people are still in captivity, and negotiations are happening around the clock to get them home. Meantime, Israel launched one of the most intense airstrike attacks overnight, and so far the death toll in Gaza has climbed to over 5,000, with 1,500 injured, according to authorities there.
We had shots. It's very scary because obviously we got young kids.
An OPP officer was struck by a fleeing vehicle in Caledon this morning. The Special Investigations Unit says another officer opened fire at the vehicle simultaneously. Police were originally responding to calls about a suspicious Jeep Wrangler, and upon arrival, the Jeep sped off. The officer was struck, or who was struck, was sent to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. The driver of the Jeep has yet to be found.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app.
Canada's central bank is set to make its next interest rate decision on Wednesday. It's widely expected to hold rates steady. But as BNN Bloomberg's Jacqueline Hansen reports, a new survey shows consumer confidence is low.
A gauge of consumer confidence in Canada turned negative for the first time in more than 6 months. The Bloomberg Nanos Confidence Index suggests Canadians are becoming less optimistic about their financial health and their wealth. The percentage who believe their finances are worse off than they were a year ago has increased. And more Canadians are pessimistic about the value of their homes. 16% believe house prices in their neighborhood will decline in the next 6 months. That is the highest since April. Another big concern for Canadians tied to their homes is paying the mortgage. According to a new survey by the Angus Reid Institute, 1 in 6 mortgage holders are struggling with their monthly payment. That has doubled since March. Others are worried about their payments rising. 4 in 5 say they are either worried or very worried they will face higher payments when it comes time to renew their mortgage. Meanwhile, half of restaurants in this country are operating at barely break even or at a loss. That's according to national industry group Restaurants Canada. It says that even though sales have improved and are expected to increase to $110 billion this year, it's costing restaurants far more to operate. It points to soaring costs from wages to utilities, insurance, and rent as eating into profit. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for today. The Canadian dollar is trading just slightly higher to about 73 cents U.S. West Texas Intermediate oil slid about $2.50 to roughly $85.50 U.S. a barrel. And Western Canadian Select fell about $3.50 to a little over $61 U.S. a barrel. As for stock markets, the TSX declined 68 points to end the day at 19,046.74. That is the latest in business. I'm Jacqueline Hansen of B&M Bloomberg.
The United Auto Workers Union has once again escalated its strikes against the big three Detroit automakers.
We don't want our members out here. So, we want to get our members off the picket lines and back to work building the greatest product in America. But we want our fair share. We're not going to continue going backwards.
In Michigan, 6,800 workers walked off the job today as the biggest Stellantis assembly plant in the U.S. The Sterling Heights facility makes the Ram 1500 pickup truck. Stellantis says it's outraged because the company improved its offer but has not heard back from the union. There are now nearly 40,000 workers on strike at GM, Ford, and Stellantis.
We have a big acquisition in the energy sector to tell you about tonight. Chevron is buying Hess Corporation for $53 billion. The move adds a major oil field in Guyana and shale properties in North Dakota. Chevron is paying for Hess with stock and says the deal is part of its objective to safely deliver higher returns and lower carbon. Hess shareholders still have to give their approval.
A Toronto skateboarder has struck gold at the Pan Am Games, and she is only 13 years old. Faye DeFazio-Ebert won the women's park competition Sunday, scoring a best of 84.66 points on the second of her 3 runs in Santiago, Chile. She competed with a feather in her helmet from her pet duck, Richard, for good luck, of course. Ebert is currently traveling back from Chile, but we did speak to her coach today.
Really great is I've seen it here in Chile and I've seen it across Canada and wherever we go. The young women that are skating are really starting to find their own way in the sport, because all you need is a skateboard and cement, and they can go out in their groups and they don't need, a field or practice times or anyone to tell them what to do, and they can push each other, and it's a really supportive sport.
Ebert captured Canada's 5th gold of the Games. Canada also has 2 silver and 3 bronze. Skateboarding made its Olympic debut in Tokyo 2 years ago and will be contested again next summer in Paris.
Meanwhile, Canada's team for the Davis Cup final is now set. Here are the 5 players who will be looking to bring home the title for a second straight years. Thornhill's Milos Raonic will be joined by Felix Auger-Aliassime of Montreal, along with Vernon BC's Vasek Pospisil, Gabriel Diallo of Montreal, and Laval's Alexis Galarneau. Now, Canada begins its final 8 stage against Finland on November 21st. Canada beat Australia last year to win the Davis Cup for the first time.
Canada Post is honoring an NHL trailblazer who has made a difference on and off the ice. A stamp will be issued in recognition of Willie O'Ree, the league's first black player. O'Ree will be there when it is unveiled Saturday during the Heritage Classic festivities in Edmonton. The stamp will be officially issued on Monday. O'Ree had stints with the Boston Bruins in the late 50s and early 60s, but his impact on the game has been significant.
It was perhaps the biggest moment in Toronto sports history. A look back 30 years ago when Joe Carter touched them all and hit a walk-off World Series home run. That's coming up.
Tonight, the release of 2 more hostages by Hamas.
I was in tears since I heard of it.
The Canadian connection to one of the freed women and the fragile negotiations for the remaining captives. Later on CTV National News.
Well, this is the anniversary of one of the biggest moments in Toronto sports history.
30 years ago tonight, Joe Carter touched them all.
Here's the pitch on the way, a swing and a belt, left field, way back, Blue Jays win it! The Blue Jays are World Series champions as Joe Carter hits a 3-run home run in the 9th inning, and the Blue Jays have repeated as World Series champions. Touch them all, Joe. You'll never hit a bigger home run in your life.
That legendary call from Tom Cheek as Carter went deep against the Philadelphia Phillies in Game 6 of the 1993 Fall Classic. Carter says he still gets chills when he talks about it. His homer is the only one ever to win a World Series while trailing the bottom of the 9th inning. I remember that. It was like one of the best moments in sports history, like we said.
That's a
Fantastic.
where were you when that happened moment. I remember it vividly. You do. Do you remember that?
Well, I was living on the other side of the country, but I do remember it happening.
Right.
Yes, yeah, it was spectacular. And we have a pretty decent looking forecast. Dare we say spectacular at times this week. One more look at the satellite and radar. A couple of sprinkles of rain around southern Georgian Bay, for example. Some cloud in our neck of the woods and perhaps a passing shower overnight tonight. There's tomorrow, 18 degrees, mix of sun and cloud. Going to be a beautiful day to get outside, check out the fall colors. And here's one more look at the 7-day forecast, warming up from here, but becoming unsettled. Michelle and Nathan.
Thank you, Lindsay. And that is it for us. But be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us here at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a great night.